Good evening. I'd like to call the City of Menasha Common Council meeting to order. Please rise and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Could we have roll call, please?
Alderman Keehan. Alderman Engelbert. Alderman Benner. Alderman Nichols. Here. Alderman Sevenik. Here. Alderman Langdon.
Here.
Alderman Zielinski has been excused.
Alderman Taylor is at the Landmarks Commission presently. I'm not sure if he'll be coming up later or not, but
He said to me, I was there at that meeting. I was there at that meeting, and he said that he would be arriving a little late.
okay. So the first item on the agenda is people from the gallery to be heard on matters pertaining to the agenda. Is there anyone who wishes to be heard this evening?
Mary, it's lights on. Testing, good to go. Again, good evening. Michael Taylor, 545 Broad Street. Tonight on your agenda on page 148 is the dollar amount necessary for Coslow Park field rehabilitation and updates to the facility, and that is a portion of what needs to be done. I don't know if Director Tungate has given out any of the Coslow Field Facility Improvement Capital Campaign. I do have a list of all the dollar figures. Director Tungate, are you going to hand this out for the dollar figures to show the council what the numbers are that we're talking about? Would anybody like a copy of the dollar amount so when he discusses it, you'll know what we're talking? So, here, I'll just...
We can pass them out afterwards, Mike, or give it to someone at the end. Sure. Okay.
So you can follow along. Tonight, as Vice Commander, I'm representing the American Legion, who has vested interest in our Menasha Twins Legion team. Of course, you all know that the Menasha Twins was champions in the AA baseball tournament here in the state of Wisconsin. The Legion is proud of our youth programs, and one of them is baseball. The Legion in the state of Wisconsin, this is our 89th season sponsoring youth baseball. And we sponsor in the state of Wisconsin 207 teams, and there is 5 classifications at the state tournament. And of course, our Menasha Twins is state champions, and I would imagine you're well aware of it. You had a resolution. It's a great youth program. Back in August, I met with Jeff Chu, who is our Legion coach. Jeff has been our coach for 31 years. He's done a remarkable job. For the last 5 years, he's taken the Menasha Twins, our Legion team, to the state tournament. I met with Tom and Larry Konetsky and also Alderman Keehan out at Coslow Park because during the season, I attend a lot of the games, the Twins game, the Max games, and I played baseball for, pretty much all my life until I hit 45, and then that was the end of that. That's about the time I had to get my glasses. But Coslow Field is a terrific baseball park out there. It does need some updates. We met, we had discussions, and we put together a list of what needs to be done out there, and we also prioritized it. And as you can see on the prioritized list, there is on the top section, basically number 1, which Jeff Chu and Tom and Larry Konetsky from the Max agreed upon, was the infield. There is a drainage problem in the infield, and as you can read down the list, there is some problems with the infield. I'm not going to read them all off to you. Maybe the Max would want to chime in on that. So what we did was we looked at all the other issues out there, and the state tournament for the Legion team was in Baraboo. And I believe it was Tom Konetsky and Jeff Chu. They were talking about the infield here at Coslow that needed some work, and it just so happens that a citizen from Baraboo, for whatever reason, either overheard the conversation or whatever, but this Jeff Chinler does baseball infields for a living. He is a baseball infield specialist, and he does this for a living. And Brian invited him up to Menasha to take a look at our infield. And of course, this dollar figure Mr. Schindler came up with. We had talked about making sure that we have a person that knows how to do infields. You know, sometimes you can get somebody to do an infield, but it's not done properly. So I just hope that we don't, I mean, if we go out and we look at other people that do the infield and the bids come in, you want a specialist. You want to do it done right, because if you don't do it right the first time, you know, you're going to have to redo it. The other issue, and that was a expense, as you can see, of $28,800. After talking to Jeff Chu and Tom Konetsky and Larry Konetsky and the Max, we looked at when they do the infield, and if you're a baseball person, you know that if you're an infielder, you want it smooth, you want it laid out. And since they were going to do the infield, we thought, why not put an in-ground sprinkler system in, rather than that person that works for the cities out there with the hosing the grass down on a daily basis. And that would be a real additive for the infield. Also, the backstop fence, if you've ever been out there in a storm, it's kind of leaning over and it's all rusty. Tom Konetsky came up with a brilliant plan of moving that fence up 15 feet. If you ever were out at Coslow Park, you know behind the backstop fence is the bleachers, and there's a small aisleway and then the concession stands. Right now, from home plate to the backstop fence is 60 feet. And if we move that fence up to probably 45 feet, there'd be more room for the citizens when you have a lot of participation at the game. It's better to fluid motion through that area. And as you can see, the prices on that, there's some of this to be determined. One of them was the in-ground sprinkler system, dress seat and roll the infield. Of course, when you're dealing with baseball fields, you want pretty much plush grass. Also, the other item was, because of the drainage problem on the infield, and that's a very a concern, the lips and the drainage problem, that has not been determined to create a rain garden, which would be outside the third base line. You have that open area over there where that garage is, and the water has to go somewhere. And they were, when this gentleman, if approved, would look at the infield and decide where to run the tile and where to move the water. Of course, you want to move it off the infield. And as you can see, the dollar price came down here to almost 60,000, which is probably on the light side. It probably be 70 to 75,000. And this is only pretty much phase one. Through the years, nothing's really been done out at Coslow, and we thought this is a good time to approach the council and talk to them about the needs out there. And of course, if you look on the bottom section, there's a 2015 and beyond for the facility improvements, which we need budget monies every year so we can accumulate monies. If we were to budget $10,000 each year for the last 10 years, we'd have 100,000, and, you know, we could do a lot of these projects. So what I'm gonna do right now, without objection, I'd like to reserve the rest of my time, and I would like a gentleman to come up here. This gentleman is a pillar of our community. He's done a lot of sweat equity out at Kozlo. His DNA is all out there, all over the place. And this gentleman was Citizen of the Year. He received the Isle of Valor honors. This person, we disagree to agree at times, and we're still friends. And I'd like to turn the mic over to my good friend Tom Konetsky.
Wow, I didn't expect that. But I am familiar with the ballpark out there, and maybe I can offer something here. I guess we're asking the high school also, Mr. Tanner here forgot to mention the high school involvement in this, and we thought maybe we could get some of their dollars coming this way. Nick Carlson was hoping to be here. He might show up yet. You know what he's doing this time of the year. Anyway, this year. So anyways, we were asked to come up with $20,000 at that portion for this improvement for Kozlo Park. And timing's not the greatest because city fathers in the area have been throwing a lot of dollars toward boys sports out there. If you haven't been out there lately, take a look at it. It's fantastic what they did out there, and now they want to put lights out there. We're about 2 years late on this fundraising. Mr. Taylor has roughly 70, 80 mailings he sent out, and the response hasn't been that great. We got a few dollars, but nowhere near that 20 grand they're asking for us. We can throw some money toward the project. At the year's end, we might have around 4,000 in the kitty, in the black. Mr. Koopman here, our treasurer is here. He might be able to elaborate on that. Anyways, through the years, we've stuck money in that ballpark and playground equipment, the scoreboard, the PA, and locker rooms and cooling systems, all that kind of stuff. In addition to our scholarships, $200 $500 gift for how many years we've done that. Boys Brigade, the Twins, I think the last year we gave them $400, and Boys Sport got a chunk of money through the years. We're not saying we haven't got the money yet, and I hope you don't hold us to that. Right now, we cannot come up with it right now, but we'll continue to strive to make Kozlo Park better and be a part of this improving the groundwork is out there, the lighting's good, scoreboard nice, and after the vines grow, you come at a night ball game, it's beautiful out there. But it needs some work, and hopefully we can throw some dollars that way and improve Kozlo Park, where it can be really a standout, really standout. I like it to be a place, a destination, just like your flower gardens out here, your marina, and hopefully down the road, your downtown. I'd like to make that a destination point. It would be that nice that people in the area would not miss coming to the park. Thank you for your time. Mike caught me off guard quite a bit here, but that's about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Konetsky. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak? Mike, you already went almost twice over your allotted times. Yeah. You were about 9 minutes.
Larry Konetsky, the Menasha too, President of the Menasha Athletic Association. Really what I have to offer is some of the numbers that what Max have donated, not just to Menasha, but to all the different organizations like the Twins and Youth Sports and Boys and Girls Brigade and so forth. We donate to different organizations about $5,000 a year. So we do touch a lot of other entities besides just baseball. Fireworks for the city of Menasha, scholarships was mentioned, veterans, the flagpoles and stuff like that. So as my older brother said, we don't have a lot of money by ourselves because we do donate to other organizations too. But the ballpark is our main emphasis for the baseball team, and we'd just like to see more improvements to it, for safety reasons and for the aesthetics and the goodwill that it shows for the city of Menasha to have a good place to play. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Konetsky. Anyone else? Better make it quick, Mike.
Quick and sweet, good news and the bad news. The good news, we were asked to raise $20,000. In Brian's budget on 148, page 148, you'll see the city portion, they have 20,000 in there, and I believe that's from the non-levy fund. That is from the park dedication fund, which was approximately, I believe, $208,000 in that fund. When I first approached the Park and Rec Board, I asked if the Park and Rec Board would approve $100,000. And I did contact Peggy and ask her if we borrowed $100,000 or put on the tax levy $100,000. Peggy, if I'm wrong on this, please let me know. It would have been increase of the tax levy of 10.8 cents if we were to ask last year for $100,000. So that would increase the tax levy by 10.8 cents last year. As you can see, the total amount for this to get phase one started, of course, this wouldn't start probably until the end of next season with the infield, because you couldn't start in the spring. I talked to Nick Carlson. He was going to be here tonight, but he said he'd try to make it, but of course he is also the Menasha High School baseball coach, and he's also the defensive coordinator for our football team. Nick has attended some of our meetings here with the Park and Rec Board, and according to Brian, the schools have donated $20,000 in their budget. So the entities of the Menasha Legion here and the Max were asked to raise $20,000. Unfortunately, the Legion doesn't have deep pockets, and neither does the Max. But we did send out 81 letters, and as of today, we received a total of $1,250 from businesses. We sent out 81 letters, so we came up a little short, and we're asking the council to whatever way they can approve dollars amount, and if there's a carryover, that should be put into a Cosel Field facility improvement capital budget that would be designated for the monies, because as you can see, the facility needs some work, and we need to get started sooner than later. It's been put off too long for some of the things that need to be done. I want to thank you for your time, and I want to present Brian with the checks I have. Also, we did receive a letter from Waters Plumbing. Cal Waters said he could donate his time to do any of the plumbing out there. So we have that also will be in the envelope, and I will present that to Brian. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. Is there anyone else this evening?
Koopman, treasurer of the Max, and I'm up here not so much to talk about money, but about the infield now. I don't know if you know too much about a baseball infield, but someone mentioned a lip, and I don't know if you know what the lip is, but where the infield grass ends and the outfield grass starts, there's dirt in between, and during the season and the years, the dragging, the lip builds up. It's about maybe 1-2 inches. But if you're playing the outfield and the ground ball comes through the infield, hits the lip, it'll pop up maybe 3 or 4 feet that you're not expecting. I used to play third base about 50 years ago at the old ballpark, and there was a big lip there. So you either had to play in front of the lip or behind the lip, because you didn't want the ball to hit that lip because you didn't know if it was going to hit you in the face or the leg or where it was going. So that's a problem out there. And along the first base line, the dirt goes about that far from outside the baseline, but after that there's a drop off of about, I don't know, maybe 9-12 inches. So if somebody gets a double and they want to round the base, you move out into foul territory, come hit the inside base and go to second, you have to go down about 9 inches down a hill. And then when you come to the base, you got to come back and go up about 9 inches to hit the base. So I think those are some of the safety problems that we're running into out there. So something should be done with that as soon as we can. Some of those other things maybe we could put on a list for later, but there's some safety issues, and I think those two are probably the biggest ones. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Koopman. Is there anyone else?
Hi, my name is Paul Johnson. My wife and I run the concession stand for the high school for 16 years and the max for 11. Everything they said about the problems with that lip and such is true, but the major problem with the grading and the drainage is the drainage. Everything they're talking about fixing would let that field dry so events can actually happen when they're scheduled, instead of the groundskeeper and park and rec having to put extraordinary amount of time into trying to get the field dry again, so the high school or the Twins and a couple of other groups that play there could actually get their games in. I know they put a lot of time into drying the field when good drainage, good grading would take care of a lot of that. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? If we have no one else, we'll move on to the first item on the agenda, which is the Park and Rec, Forestry, Cemetery, and Pool budgets. Director Tungate?
I guess we're going to kick things off here with the cemetery, which I don't have a whole lot of opening remarks on the cemetery. It's not
Mayor,
changing.
Stan?
can I request that, seeing that the majority of the people in the gallery that are here are probably here for that one issue, so maybe it would be best, instead of having them sit through the whole budget process, if we could just skip over to that page, I think he said it was 148, and let's maybe talk about that, and then they can go home and have dinner.
If there's no objection, we can do that. It is part of the entire budget though, so I mean, if you may not want to just look at this as a single entity as well, so. Stan's is still on.
Is that all right with you, Brian?
Sure.
Okay.
Alderman Nichols?
I have no objection to that. However, I would appreciate a overview of the entire parks budget, a general summary, if you can provide that before we move to the Coslow Park issue.
You're talking about the park budget, not the pool, not anything else?
A general summary of everything that would be on our agenda, so we have an idea of what you view as priorities, what you have budgeted for the entire year.
Okay.
Thank you.
So I'll try
Mayor,
to,
I think that takes away from what I just asked.
Well, typically what we've done is we've done a general description of what's the
Do we have
beach
to take a
director
vote on
has.
it?
Stan, I think it's appropriate that Brian describes his entire budget and then we can move on to
We've
the
done this,
specific
we have
item.
done this 1,000 times in my lifetime. It's ridiculous. Shame on you.
This is a 2-minute,
Go ahead, do what you want.
this is a 2-minute description and then we can move on.
All right, I'll give you the fast version, I guess. Really, rec budget, no significant changes there, and we can get into some more of this later if you wish, but really, budgetarily, financially, not a whole lot of changes there. Moving on just to the park budget itself, I was going to talk about I know Alderman Engelbert and others have asked about this Jefferson Master Plan. We know that's a priority. We do plan on getting to that in 2015. We just had a lot of irons in the fire, and we need to coordinate with community development. Probably sound a little bit like a broken record when you hear that, but it is a priority, and we know we need to move forward on that. We have our new East Side Park. That's another high priority. We've worked out an agreement with Menasha Rotary. They're on board with collaborating with us on the development of that park. We hope to get some playground equipment, a design for playground equipment at that new park. We want to engage some input from the neighborhood out in that area, and so we're kind of laying the groundwork for this playground equipment. It's kind of being phase 1 of the new park out on the east side. We also are going to be working with the Clovis PTO on some poured in place rubberized surfacing. That's going to be done in August. And we recently had a meeting with some school district folks, and the PTO has raised, I think, over $20,000 to go towards that project. So really, we're providing the labor, they're providing the money to get that done. We have the Gilbert project that we're working on reviewing. We got some bids in. We're working on kind of a plan to bring forward to you through the Board of Public Works and a bid award. Hopefully on December 1st, we'll have that arranged and we'll bring that forward. But there will be some Park Department effort going into the landscape probably next fall in that Gilbert site project. We have one resignation that recently took place on our crew, so we have one opening right now, so that's something that we need to fill sometime early in 2015. We have the 10-year anniversary of the Trestle Trail. We're going to be working with the town of Menasha on that, so there'll be some type of celebration, and we have $12,000 sitting in the budget as our share of some upgrades to the trestle. There's some posts that need replacing. There's some turnbuckle work, and there's just a little wear and tear over a decade of use. I can't believe it's been that long, but so there's a few repairs that have to be done on that. And then the last thing I'll mention is the Jefferson Park shoreline. We do want to clean that the edge of that shoreline up. There's a lot of gravel and kind of weediness there, and so we do have that in the CIP plan as well. So our plate is, I'd say, is pretty full going into 2015. I guess if Coslow Park is in our Park Land Development Fund. We did, I think it's been spelled out pretty clearly by the folks tonight. We have had several meetings with them. We have engaged the services of Craig Schendler, who I agree is a ball diamond expert. I think we all liked what he said and were impressed with his background. And really, the handout that Mike passed out is pretty accurate. Those are, the priorities are listed there, and those are what we're planning on proceeding with. There's a possibility we could do the backstop work in the winter. We're looking at that. We're checking on prices and just the type of backstop, and so there's a lot of detail on that. But there is a possibility we could do the backstop over the winter and have that ready for the spring season, which would be nice if we could, I think, accomplish that. But he's right. The other work probably would take place in late summer, early fall. But there's a lot of, we need to get some, some other proposals and a lot lot of legwork yet before we know exactly what that's going to cost. But I think the estimates are pretty good for what's been laid out here. So moving on to the pool. Can't really sugarcoat the pool. It was not a good year in 2014. Attendance was not good, although some of the positives there were we still did pretty well from a pass standpoint. We had some members of Vince's crew did a nice job in creating some savings in our water usage at the pool that we'll probably see more in 2015. The benefits of that more in 2015, and we did have a good movie night. A lot of folks attended that, so there were some positives out of the pool. The one thing that's out there, we did order the new boiler, and the good news there is that it came in less cost than what we had anticipated, and so you can expect to hear from me again, because we have for the money that's going to be left over from that, we have some other maintenance at the pool that we want to address, and the slide. And so I don't want to, maybe go into a ton of detail on that right now, but we will be coming forward with some type of proposal to use that quote leftover money that we were able to save on the pool boiler. So I guess I wanted just to give the council a heads up. That's kind of in the works. Moving on to the heck rod budget, pretty much status quo there, $2,500. That's been their allotment for several years now, and so we really didn't alter that at all. Forestry budget, probably the biggest thing you'll note there is that there was not any vehicle equipment rental amount in that budget last year, which is an oversight on our part, but that's really why that budget is roughly $10,000 higher than it was last year. But if you want to get into some more of the detail, I think Vince and I are prepared to talk more in depth on the forestry budget a little bit later if you want. Marina, really the only thing we're looking at there is a new Wi-Fi system, which I think most of you are aware of. The marina had, I guess you'd call it an average to perhaps slightly below average year. Again, like the pool, we had a very cool June, and so that negatively impacts the pool. It also impacts the marina. But overall, I think we're doing pretty well in that fund. Then I guess
So that's basically
that's basically the budget. If you didn't want to get into the park
why don't we
dedication funds.
Yeah, why don't we start out with the park dedication fund, because that contains both the Coslow and the Rotary Park as those two items, correct? And Jefferson Park.
Yes.
So
we have
which is page 148.
Page 148. Yeah, we're earmarking a significant amount of money to come out of that fund for this year. Number one being $100,000 for play equipment. Now that may not be the ultimate number that we use, because in our discussions with Menasha Rotary, they've committed to some of their own cash to go towards this project, but they're also willing to go out and knock on some doors to help raise some money for the I guess we call it phase one of the development of that park is the playground equipment. So we're in the process of coming up with a master plan, for the park. We have some ideas on what the playground equipment could look, and so we will be having a neighborhood public information meeting, probably in January sometime. And so we definitely want to engage the input from the neighbors, and so we're planning on doing that. So that's going to be a big project, and we're looking at a community build type of thing where the Rotary would bring out 20 to 30 people and help us install the equipment. So that's another part of their contribution to the new East Side Park. The next $25,000 you see there, that is, I guess an amount that I feel that we can probably afford to pull out of that fund to go towards the Gilbert site bid. And so, along with the bid award that will be coming soon, we will also be bringing forth a plan on how to pay for the project. And so, a small piece of that would be the Parkland Dedication Fund. That's what that $25,000 signifies. So, and then lastly, there is the $20,000 for the Coslo. That's basically, I think I've spelled it out, it's sort of a one-third. School district has pledged their $20,000, but it's, I think, important to note that that money really isn't available until July. They're on a different fiscal year. So really, you know, the field users have, but really between now and August, end of August, you know, to continue fundraising. So it's not like we're, you know, up against any real tight deadline as far as that goes. And I think that covers 148. It kind of covers the plans for the Park Dedication Fund.
Alderman Sevenick?
Well, as far as the Coslow Park rehabilitation, number one, what the citizens need to know, and everyone here, is that this is a city-owned facility, and we should be doing everything possible to maintain it in an appropriate manner. And I am happy that we're proceeding, because it is starting to show its use. The $100,000 for the playground equipment, and you keep calling it the East Side Park, and then you're always talking about the Rotary. Is there a name yet for this park? Because, you know, there's sponsorship names and things like that, and I hope that just by volunteering and stuff, that we're not going to call the park by a certain organization. It's a feeling I hold very strongly, and so a lot of work is being done behind the scenes, and I'm unaware of what's going on, and so I want to hear some answers this evening.
I'm sorry, could you say that you are in favor of organizations? No, you're not. Okay, well.
If they're willing to put the money forward, fine. But if it's just volunteer help and stuff, that's different. I want to know where this is going, because I think it's being flown under the radar.
Well, it's not really any secret that they're hoping that their name can go on this park, but I know in the park board meetings, you know, that there has been some sort of financial goals laid out to them, and I think the Rotary is pretty clear on what our what the park board's expectation are, and I believe once they get close to this threshold of basically, you know, half of the development. I mean, that's sort of the rule of thumb that many organizations follow with naming rights. So I think the park board is sort of acknowledged that as being a standard that they would like the Rotary to reach. But you know, naming of parks is a park board function. So but I think they're going to go. I think they're going to be very you know, careful and weigh out everything before they take that step. So there hasn't been any commitment to a name on it yet.
Okay.
But I think there's some expectation by the Rotary that, hey, if we get to this
And that's why I'm
point.
hoping you don't go too far out on a limb here.
Yeah, no.
Because if the taxpayers or the fee that's being paid towards this parkland dedication fee, dollars are being used, and then all of a sudden it becomes the name of some organization because they volunteered some help and maybe kicked in a few $100, I don't buy that.
No.
You know, because
Well,
we're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars, and not only that, but the long-term maintenance and everything of the. I'm telling you, when it comes to naming rights, there are communities that bring in huge dollars for those kind of things, and we just shouldn't poo-poo it.
No, well, and the other thing I probably should have mentioned was, you know, phase 2 is this a park shelter out there. So we have roughly, you know, a a $200,000 or so price tag on that, and we did talk to Rotary about that, and they're willing to help, solicit maybe a contractor to build this for us for nothing. So, we've already started sort of discussing sort of the second part of the park development, which would be a small shelter building. So they're on board as far as they can be, I think, at this point, but we'll see how it plays out, of course.
So as far as the people that live out there, we're looking at them being able to bring their kids into this east side park by 2015, or are we looking more
Well,
long-term?
our optimistic goal would be the fall of 2015, we'd do a community build. That would be probably the earliest we could pull this off. It very well could be early spring, or late spring, early summer 2016. I hate to say that, but we're shooting for this, hopefully a fall playground, a community build where our guys will help out and the Rotary will show up and build this playground. That's what we're shooting for.
Okay, then to switch gears, unless someone else has questions on that, I want to go to your issue of the $25,000 for the Gilbert site. I mean, can you explain that amount again a little bit further? Because I thought that we had received a grant for that.
Well, the city is gonna have to come up with some cash in order to make this based on the bid numbers that we've received. And like I said, we're still combing through those numbers, and we'll bring I guess a funding plan proposal forward along with the bid award. But at least I always, I guess, contemplated that yes, we would need some parkland monies for that project. And is that the exact amount that it needs to be? I'm not sure, but at least I wanted to at least get a sort of a placeholding number in there that we would probably at least need that amount. So that, I don't know if that helps with your
That helps a lot.
question.
Yep, thanks. And then back to the Kozlo Field, and probably to address the gallery and the rest of the people who are involved. Fundraising is a tough thing. Everybody is out there. End of the year is a tough time too, because most businesses, and I think that's who you geared it towards, their funds have expired because they put their budgets together and then they figure out who they're going to contribute to. And I think that you'll have better luck at the beginning of next year and throughout the year till, like he said, before July. But to me, it shows your commitment to, you hate to do it, it's a lot of work. And it's not like you haven't worked your butt off already out there. I mean, you've had both the Max and I wanted to say the Rotary, got the Rotary on my mind. But Mike's organization, they did outstanding this year. Menasha should be very proud. I feel a lot of people still don't realize the accomplishments that your group has made to the city of Menasha, especially in the baseball field. I mean, people that are in their group realize that Menasha's got some serious talent here. And this is a Menasha facility, and we should do what we can to make sure that we get these updates taken care of. I think that the amount is a small amount as far as the phase one. I would actually think and hope that at some point we could go beyond that. So I'll leave any other comments up to other council members.
Alderman Ingleberg.
Thank you, Mayor. I've got a number of questions, Brian. I'm trying to wrap my arms around this project. Did you say that the school district has committed $20,000?
Yes, they have. They recently passed their budget, and I've just got that verbal approval from school district official.
But if we leave our 20,000 in and they could contribute 20, we're at 40,000, which is, what, 2/3 of, the sheet here, the top half, the 60,000 estimate, is that like phase one that you'd like to accomplish all in the first year, or can that be split out into phases? I assume,
Well,
you know, I don't know how much of this needs to, do they want all of this top half done, or does it need to be done in 2015? Or is part of that can be carried over, or what?
I would say the only thing that probably won't be done on that top part is the in-ground sprinkler system for infield. I mean, yes, we are planning on, you know, rolling the infield. You know, we did get some feedback on how to better take care of that infield, and unless I'm missing something, you know, virtually everything else on that top part should be done if we have all the money to do it.
Okay.
So that's kind of our plan.
Okay.
And the other thing I would say is that that top part will be a significant improvement to the field, both visually and functionally. It will be a much better facility. So I wouldn't sort of downplay the importance of that first top of the page. That's pretty significant.
Well, I'm not. I just am wondering, trying to figure out how much money we actually need to come up with and when. I have a question. So we're pretty much saying you'd like to do the top half, and some way or another you could get to that 55,000, 60,000 level. That would allow us to do at least most, or if not all of it, this year, or early the following year.
Yes.
Okay. I have a question for Peggy. On the park budget, I'm on page 52.
Jim, is this kind of related back to that? Otherwise, we're just kind of working on the dedication fund?
Well,
If it relates
I'm
back,
working on
that's fine.
Coslow Field, how
Okay.
many pages it's on.
Good, okay, that's fine.
My question is that we're projected to come in under budget for 2014. And I know this is just a projection, and it's only November 12th. But if I'm reading the numbers correctly, it looks like we may come, you know, a fair amount under the budget.
That's a department estimate. I don't do those estimates, so I would defer that to Brian.
I'm on 52, Brian.
But I think page 56 is actual the park budget. I think you're on the rec budget.
All right. So that would be page 56, and that projection is even more. What I'm trying to get at is, if we had projected carryovers, normally we just put those back in the general fund next spring, do we not?
Those wouldn't be carried over. The only carryovers that happen by law are for items that are specifically in one budget that get brought over to the next budget. Anything else would go to the general fund balance.
Right, so could we earmark some of that toward this project?
That would really be a budget adjustment if you wanted to do that, because by state law, the only things that can be carried over would be the items that are in the budget.
Okay, but I'm just looking at this as a group here, instead of taking this money, waiting till next spring and rolling it back into the general fund. We made budget adjustment to take some of this overage to put into the, you know, to make up some of this shortage here, that'll get us a little bit farther along. I don't know, right off the top, I wouldn't have a suggestion on exactly how much, but if that's an area where the council is comfortable making a budget adjustment, there might be some more money that we could apply toward this, so.
When
And I would
Peggy
expect-
sorry, go ahead.
I would expect that the fundraising groups are gonna continue trying to raise funds toward this next year. So hopefully there'll be some extra funding there, so. It's possible we could come up with a little bit more anyway.
So when Peggy and I were reviewing the total budget for 14 and 15, it looks like the 14 budget will probably come in right about even to what we had projected, except for the $150,000 that we had projected to take out of the general fund to pay. So basically, we'll not be putting anything in nor taking anything out, depending on how accurate everyone's
Yeah, I have the numbers based
projections
on
are.
everybody's final budget estimates. We planned on taking $155,000 from fund balance. We would only take $66,000 from fund balance if everybody's final adjustments or final estimates come in. No, because we planned on using 155 and we'd only be using 66, so 92 to the good, or 99 to the good, sorry.
So, but that would bring our fund balance down a little. It's not like we're actually adding anything to the fund balance at the end of the year. I just wanted to make everyone aware of that before we moved on. Alderman Langdon?
Thank you, Mayor. Brian, in the last 10 years, let's just go back only 10 years, how much money was put aside for Kozlo Park?
Yeah, I don't know if I could really give you a real good answer for that. You're
All
talking
right.
about just general.
I know since I've been alderman, no money has been appropriated for Kozlo Park, 6 years, so $0 has been given to Kozlo Park. We have to remember that that's a park. It's a baseball field, but it's a park. It's a city park. And since I've been alderman, zero money has been allocated toward that. I am a baseball person and played baseball with Brian and afterwards and coached many years. And to be honest, back in the early 90s when I was coaching Varsity Legion over at Neenah, I don't think anything has been done to Kozlo Field since then. Everybody talks about quality of life. You know, the pool, quality of life. We have to have a pool. What about the baseball field for all the kids and the girls that play baseball? That's a quality of life for them. Not every one of them uses the pool. Now, many of them use the pool. I know that. Their time is spent either in the basketball court, baseball field, soccer field. That's their quality of life. So we have to look at that baseball field, that park, as a quality of life for the city of Menasha. The Macs donate money every year, and they don't have money, but they still donate what they have. After every Mac season is over, they have the end of the year banquet. That's just not for the baseball players. That's for everybody in the city. They give out donations. They give out money to kids. It's just not a baseball only banquet. It's for the city of Menasha and the people that they donate money to, sponsorships, scholarships. So, you know, and really, the $25,000, the city of Menasha still hasn't put in one penny yet. That's coming out of the Park Dedication Fund, right? That's already there. So as far as I see, we're still putting in $0 to Kozlo Field. One thing I sure hope city workers aren't going to be working on that field. They have not a clue what to do on a baseball field, how to do it. I hope, because you mentioned before about, well, we have our plate full. City workers, I hope, aren't going to be on there and should not be on there, so you really can't count them as, well, they're busy, we're going to lose people for that. No, this guy is going to come in and have his own people redo that infield. That's a must. They're going to be ripping up the infield. That's how it's done. And at that time, boy, that's when you put that in-ground sprinkler system in. Because if you don't, you're gonna be ripping it up again.
Can I jump in here? We're not planning on ripping up the infield. That's gonna be rolled. This guy, Craig Schindler, came in, said just top dress, roll it in the spring, really not that bad. So that, I wanna clear that, we're not gonna tear up the infield. We're working on the baselines and the hips, from the base paths to the dugout. That's where these hills and valleys are. So.
Okay. You know, we're asking those guys to raise $20,000, and I know that I put a lot of my sweat, elbow grease into the baseball fields, a lot of money. Every parent, baseball isn't cheap. No sport is cheap for a high school student. And you won't ever hear one parent complain how much it costs to play baseball on that field. Never. So I look at it as a city of Menasha. It's our responsibility as quality, for the quality of life, that I would not be hesitant. And let me ask Peggy this. Peggy, if we add $30,000 to the budget, what would that do to the levy?
I don't have the new values all in, but last year it was about $9,300 per penny. So you're looking at just over 3 pennies.
3 cents. So I think I don't know if this is appropriate to make. Can I make a motion at this time?
You can.
I'd like to make a motion that we add $30,000 just for the Codswell Field Rehabilitation Fund.
Is this out of the Parkland Dedication Fund or out of the tax levy fund?
Tax levy.
Okay. Is there a second? Okay. We need a second before we can discuss. Okay, there's a motion and a second. Alderman Keehan?
Before we get into this, I had a question about the Parkland dedication.
We have to
Okay.
talk about the motion at this point. Alderman Engelbert?
Well, I can read it.
Well, I'm wondering why the 30,000 if we have 20,000 from Parkland dedication and 20,000 from the school district. That's 40. We need 60, and we have fundraising going on to at least get part of that. I'd be a lot more comfortable with 10 or 15,000, and 30 is more than they're even asking for. So I guess I'd vote against the 30, but I'd be open to 15 or 10 or 15,000.
All right.
Alderman Sumnick?
Yeah, I was just going to say the same thing. I still feel that there needs to be fundraising, because when you do that, you really take more ownership. And whether you guys realize it or not, I already made a contribution myself. So it's like you should practice what you preach. So I agree with Alderman Engelbert that the amount isn't an appropriate amount. But I also wanted to know, you had further discussion just earlier about another type of funding, and I could live with the $10,000 figure, but I want to make sure that just the motion you made isn't completely, it's in order, but it's not completely in order to the point where I need to know where the funding source is coming from. When you do that, when you add dollars, it has to come from some particular account, and those numbers need to be provided either by Peggy, and then that way we all are on the same page as far as what we're doing.
And that's why I asked him if it was a general fund expenditure or a Parkland Dedication Fund expenditure.
I think Alderman Engelbert had some other.
Okay, go ahead. Put your light on, Jim.
Alderman Taylor's up.
Thank you. I just want the record to show that I was conducting city business on the first floor with the Landmarks Commission.
I already had stated that at the beginning of the meeting.
So I'm not late, so just so the public knows. Thank you.
Okay, Jim?
Well, I'm guessing that, assuming that Mark's motion would be to take it out of the general fund, just add it onto the tax levy. The other issue, it seems to me, that we have is, as we discussed, we were taking $150,000 out of the general fund to make up the balance for last year's budget, or this year's budget.
Both?
Yeah, and the overages will allow us, instead of taking 150 out, to take 92 out, or roughly.
66.
Oh, yeah, it would make up 92 out of the 150,000. So, if we could, instead of reducing it by 92,000, we reduced it by 82,000. We're still taking out less from the general fund than we were we were projecting to, and we have an extra 10,000 that we could apply toward Kozlo Field. That would get us to 50, and if the fundraisers can work on the rest of it, it seems to me like we'd be there.
Okay. Yeah, Alderman Engelbert, 30,000 just stuck in my head just because of when Mike was talking about, being over, and that's just, but, no, then I would like to redraw my second for the 30,000 and make a motion to put in 10,000 from the general fund.
I'm not sure if that's a germane motion this evening, Peggy, is it? And we're here about the budget, so to take some.
Do that Monday?
Well, we're talking about the park budget, so I think he would be saying he wants to add $10,000 to the
Right.
park budget.
Oh, to the levy.
Right.
And for the
Okay, I was confused with what Jim was talking about, trying to hold over from.
That's, right.
Are you adding 10,000 to the 2015 budget coming
Yes.
from the levy, or are you carrying over $10,000 from the 14 budget?
Carrying over, Jim, what Alderman Engelbert was talking about.
Okay.
Yeah, so I need to redraw my motion of
And I don't think that would be,
30,000?
hold on just a second, let's
Okay.
let's,
All right.
So for right now, tonight, what you're talking about is the budget, so you would make budget amendments. But if you wanted to make that motion that was just discussed, it would just come back to a council meeting as a budget adjustment. That
Okay.
would need 2/3 of the vote, the supermajority.
Okay.
so we could put that on the agenda for
Okay.
Monday night, correct?
Yeah.
Correct.
Do
Okay,
it now, too.
but the 2014 budget isn't on the agenda this
I
evening.
gotcha.
So,
Okay, so we'll put that then on, that'll be on, so I withdrew my motion
Okay.
and asked.
Okay.
Did I do that right?
so
Everything?
we will,
Oh, so then Monday do it. Okay,
He needs to withdraw his second.
okay.
we'll add that to the Monday council meeting then, a budget adjustment to do such.
All right, thank you.
Okay. I guess while we're talking about Kozlo and partnerships too, I really want to commend Brian for working on some of these partnerships. He was able to talk to the school district about partnering with us to get us a third of that money. That was not an area that originally came up, so I think that's a great partnership. And we've had a partnership with the senior center this year to raise a third of the money for their facility. We're working on this partnership with Rotary to raise half the money to do the East Side Park or Rotary Park, Clovis Grove with the school district. So we're really working to create these partnerships. I think that strengthens our community when we all work together to raise those funds, as Alderman Sevenick was saying, rather than just throwing it on the levy and going from there. It really strengthens those projects. So I'd like to commend everyone who's been working on those, as well as Director Tungate. Alderman Engelbert.
Thank you. I just want to add to that, we challenged Brian several years ago to work with some of the groups to do some fundraising to offset some of the costs, and I know he's worked with the Max and others, but I just want to commend the Max and tell you that your commitment to raise some funding to help us with maintain Kozlo makes it a heck of a lot easier for us sitting up here to come up with the rest of the money. We see the effort and the dedication not only in terms of the amount of hours of work you put in, because I live over there and I drive by and I see you guys out there all the time working on it, but just wanted to let you know that we appreciate all the work you're putting in to maintain this park. And the efforts you made on fundraising are appreciated up here. It's much easier for us to try and work on the rest of it when we know that you're that supportive, so thank you.
So right now we're on the Parkland Dedication Fund. Are there any more comments on that specific budget? Okay. If not, then should we start over at the cemetery then and work our way through? Does everyone from the Max understand what just happened? Alderman Keehan basically said it looked like there might have been some confusion out there. So what's going to happen is on Monday night, there'll be a motion on the council agenda to budget $10,000 in addition to the $20,000 that's in the 2015 budget. And that $10,000 would be coming from the 2014 budget funds that weren't spent on other things this year. So the city would be committing a total of $30,000 to the project if it passed on Monday night and the budget passed. Well, both items would be on the Monday night agenda. We'd still be looking for a contribution from the school district and from the Max, depending on the total, and the Legion and the Brewers and whoever else is playing out there. If you guys could all work together to come up with a total amount for whatever those improvements are that you're looking for. But we filled in a little bit more of that gap to make it a little bit more realistic for your group. So, does that make sense? Okay, great. You're welcome. Okay, the cemetery budget was on what page, Brian? Was it like 40 something?
It starts on 48.
48. Okay. You guys have any?
I don't have a whole lot of comments on the cemetery. You know, we're do what we do there, and it's going along pretty well. I don't know if there's really much on the horizon that we need to address.
Any questions for Brian or Vince about the cemetery budget? No? Move on to the rec budget.
So probably the big thing in this year's last year and this year, we hired a new administrative assistant, Lori. She's doing a bang-up job, and we're kind of feeling our way through, kind of expanding her role a little bit. She's getting involved in some of the special events, and she's a pretty talented individual. So we're just starting to maximize her potential, I guess. On the other thing, on the positive side, we had a couple good experiences program-wise with archery, gymnastics. Those are two areas that are growing, and the community seems to want more of. So we're trying to move in that direction. To backtrack just a little bit, there are some. If you look at some of the 2014 year-end projections, there's I think in account 3402 and 31.2, you'll see some overages there. That was some of the training that we had but we wanted to get Lori trained in our computer software, so that was a pretty significant investment. So that's why you see some of those accounts higher than they normally would be. We have the new Boys and Girls Club obviously being built, and so we have reached out to them. It's part of this collaboration, so we want to try to, wherever possible, and maybe it's in the area of gymnastics and archery, those sorts of programs that we want to work, kind of play to their strengths, play to our strengths, and so we can make the community better all around. So that's something that we're looking forward to doing next year. And I also mentioned about the website. I think there's an effort that we're going to be redoing the entire city website, and so we're going to have to take some time to make the Park and Rec pages more user friendly. So we are looking forward to that. But I guess in general, we're not seeking a whole lot more money from last year. This year, actually, I think it's actually a little.
Couple bucks less.
Couple bucks less, yes.
Does anyone have questions about the recreation budget this year? No? The parks budget is next.
Yeah, I touched on a few of the, 2015 objectives there. I guess to just back up a little bit, we were active in hiring there. We had our arborist person that we hired who's doing a great job for us. Also the facility tech electrician. I think that was a group effort in hiring those folks, and I think they're working out very well. At this point, we finally got the reserve building knocked down and turned into grass, which was no small feat, as you all recall. We redid a couple of tennis courts at Clovis. We want to continue with a couple more courts next year. I think I touched on some of the other things. We do have an opening, in our park crew that we're going to need to fill sometime in early 2015. And I don't know if there's any questions about 14 or 15 that you have on there.
Alderman Sevak?
First of all, I just want to say that I think the grass that came in over there looks really like the building was never there. It really, you guys did a good job of either that or Mother Nature did, but it looks really, really nice. I took a ride just recently too, and I was really surprised how well that came in. But you had mentioned, some of your new hires and stuff, and I think that because these meetings are televised and the council here too, we should get to meet these people. I always liked it. I know that the former police chief who's here this evening, when he had a new officer come on board, he'd bring them up, introduce them to the council, that kind of thing. I think we should do a little bit more of that. You're not just introducing them to us or her, but introducing to the community. So I'd like to see that if possible.
Alderman Nichols.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Director Tungate, you mentioned previously the partnership going on with the Clovis Grove PTO about the poured in place surfacing for the playground at Clovis Grove Park. And my question is, what are the plans for getting that in more of our parks, that surface?
The anticipated goal is to continue to do more and more. We had actually looked at doing Jefferson first, but with the anticipation of the master plan, we didn't want to do that. And since Clovis Grove had funding to pay for the material, it was a perfect place. It's a high-use playground versus some of our other playgrounds with the school using city playground equipment. We thought that was a perfect place to continue our process, but we will continue to do that. We will need to do that for ADA purposes.
And we have the equipment to do that?
Yes, we do.
Okay. Have you considered, as part of the new park on the east side, to just do that right away as you install the
More
playground
likely,
equipment?
that's what we would need to do, yes.
That would be fabulous. Thank you.
Anyone else? You guys want to comment a little bit about just the capital money that you have for the whole rest of the Parks Department? From my addition, it's somewhere in that $60,000 range is capital for all of our parks this year, just to kind of put in perspective. Well, it's kind of scattered throughout there, but we have some in the 470 account, some in this account, and just that we do need more funding in general to be updating and maintaining our parks. Do you have any comments about that, Brian or Vince?
I agree.
Okay. Do I have a reasonable number there? I was just kind of looking, and looked like we had about 30,000, 22,000, and 27,000. So, Alderman Engelbert?
Yeah, Brian, where exactly are we at with the Gilbert Site Trail project?
We received bids about 2 weeks ago. 2.5 weeks ago. And we are, along with the engineering firm, going through the numbers. We believe there are some quantities and some areas that could be, reduced. So our goal is, what we'd like to do is to bring in a change order or two initially with the bid award. So we're confident that that this is going to happen on December 1st, come to the Board of Public Works, and then follow up 2 weeks later with the council. So we would, the good news is the contractor likes the idea of getting started right away, likes the idea of working on the trestle. We purposely did it in 2 different projects, so the contractor could work on the trestle bridge, conversion during the winter. So we still hope to see that start in end of December, January, and they have plenty of work that they can be doing throughout the winter, and then when the temperatures warm up, they'll knock out the trail part of it. So
Think it'll all be completed next summer?
I would say landscaping fall, hopefully, ribbon cutting, fall, sometime.
Okay, I had some people in my district that are very interested in that. I keep getting questions on when are we going to get at it.
We're real interested in it too, and we're trying to make it happen, so.
All right, the other question I have is, of course, on my favorite Jefferson Park neighborhood master plan. That's been pushed back, and I'm wondering, can you give me some time frames with what you expect to accomplish this summer? Like, by when and by when and by when?
You're really going to try to pin me down here,
Yes,
huh?
sir, I am. Exactly.
Well, the one thing I would say, it's a multi-departmental effort, and so we need to get on the same page with community development. I would say if it was just a park master plan, yeah, I could probably narrow that down a little, time frame a little more tightly, but I don't know, Mayor, help me out here. What are we thinking here?
I mean, this is a 2-year discussion now.
It is. Well, you can throw me under the bus a little bit on this one.
Well, I'll be happy to do that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we can go back to the Gilbert Trail to start out with, and we had a little bit longer time frame to get the drawings done, as well as to get all the, what would you call, the foundations and other things out of the shoreline so we could get it bid. And my feeling is this Jefferson Park plan is crucial for the future of the city, and I don't want to do it halfway. So I directed Brian that we should not start the Jefferson plan until the Gilbert site was under construction. And because I didn't want us to be trying to balance these 2 projects out and do half a job on Jefferson. Well, at that point, we thought Gilbert was going to be bid, June, and constructed over the summer, and with the demolition, things dragged on a little bit further. I would hope that we could start this winter, though. Would be my goal. We do have another issue now with Kara leaving. As Brian was saying, it's a 50% community development, 50% parks, well, maybe not 25-75 maybe. So that may throw a little snag in it, but I don't think it should throw a significant snag in it. But I would like to work on it this summer, this winter.
So the net result is I have no idea when we're going to start.
This winter.
on the Jefferson.
That's just a planning process, yes.
Yeah. And is there an estimate on how long the planning process would take, and we could actually start turning this into some plan to do something?
Well,
I mean, you could
I
plan
believe,
forever.
I want to say the RFPs, it was like a 3-month or so time frame, because there's a community survey portion to it, and yeah,
Exactly.
So yeah.
And we're going to do the community survey starting this winter.
That would be my goal,
After
yes.
which we would maybe by spring, put out an RFP.
Well, we have sent out an RFP. Yeah,
have-
but we've been, it's
we have
sort of been
3
put on the back burner.
We have 3 or 4 consultants.
Yep.
And
So we'd have an interview process and.
So you just have to
some-
select one,
Yeah,
basically.
select somebody.
And then they would start putting together a plan.
Right.
So we could be looking, say, maybe sometime in spring or early summer for an actual plan, and we can start costing and
I guess it depends on when a winter start date is. Is it early winter or late
I would hope it'd be
winter?
early winter, but I guess the other thing is I don't necessarily want to put huge expectations that we're gonna start building something, Jim. As I was just talking about the $60,000 capital improvements budget for parks, and we probably have 15 years worth of $60,000 a year already built up. So just because we do this master plan, that doesn't mean we're going to be starting to build things over in Jefferson Park. What it will do is it will help us ensure that we don't build something in Jefferson Park that doesn't meet a long-term future goal. We don't want to plant $3,000 worth of trees right where the pool is gonna go. Or put up new lights at the baseball diamond and find out, well, we're gonna move that baseball diamond where the Army Reserve building was. So, I mean, that's really what this is about more, is this a long-term vision of that neighborhood and what that park could be.
Yeah, and for 2 years we've been waiting for the plan.
Yeah.
I'm fine with that. I'm just wondering if we're ever gonna get a plan.
Sure. I just didn't want you to think we're gonna put a shovel in
No.
16.
No, I understand planning
Okay.
processes and RFPs. Exactly. You gotta know where to put the shovel.
Well, we also don't have money to build.
Well, I know, but if you put a plan together, then you can start budgeting for it, you know, but you can't budget if you don't have a plan.
Exactly.
And for 2 years, we've been talking about a plan. So,
And it was budgeted 2 years ago, right?
exactly. So, we can expect that, yeah, in spring then.
Yes. More in the parks budget? No? What's next after parks? Swimming pool.
So I mentioned earlier about, no, it was not a good pool year this year. I think every pool in the area or the state would tell you that. It was primarily due to June. If we have a poor June, pool budget's never going to look good. Attendance never going to look good if you have a cool June. So that being said, there were a few positives I mentioned earlier. You know, attendance was, you know, reasonably good, still over 15,000. Usually we're in the 20 plus range, but we did do pretty well in swimming lesson attendance. Family passes were relatively good. I talked a little earlier about the boiler, and we will be coming forth for the I guess benefit of Alderman Taylor. We did order the boiler. It came in under budget, and we have some dollars left over that we'd like to earmark towards the water slide, repainting the water slide and doing some work in the fiberglass flume there. So from what Peggy told me, we need to come back to the council with some type of I guess proposal for you to approve. So we are planning on doing that in the near future, because we want to keep the pool going for as long as we can. And I believe the pool is in the 2019 capital improvement budget, whether it's that year or whatever, but we know we're at least looking at 4 or 5 more years of keeping that pool going. So we're working towards doing that, obviously. So we think we can put that leftover money to good use at the pool. Yeah, no, I mean, it's, I guess I'm open to questions on the pool.
I'll cut you off because Mike has a question.
Okay.
Your budget for last year, the request was 209,704. This year, the request is 209,875. With the actual coming in 217,671, or the projection, I shouldn't say, not the actual. And then right above those totals in, it looks like all pool chemicals or something, there's a pretty big discrepancy with buildings where there was 5,000 budgeted, and we're looking at a year-end projection of 20,000 and then a request next year for 5. What is that? What was that for?
Well, that's a great point. I actually had that highlighted on my budget. So that $20,000 doesn't account for, we have $28,000 that we had carried over that's Peggy can probably explain it better than I can, but this, we have 28,000 plus 5,000, so we really had 33 for the boiler. Boiler's only gonna end up costing 20, so with this extra 13, that's what I'm gonna come forth with a proposal to reuse that at the water slide. That's
Okay.
what I plan to do. But so that's why the pool budget looks over, because that carried over money isn't shown in that
Okay.
budget. Is that?
Yep,
right?
so that's the,
So we have two things that we've been doing this for every year. The pool boiler, because we knew it was old and on its last legs. So we've been putting aside $5,000 or so every year for that. We've also been putting money aside for voting machines every year in the same manner. So you'll see $10,000 each year, although we've built up a savings account of 40-some thousand dollars. Okay, so, and then we also did the same thing for the city hall roof last year. So some years we'll budget half in one year and half in the next year, and that's what's going on here.
all right, thanks.
Alderman Taylor?
Director Tungate, a number, it's not too long ago, I could get up my old budgets and look it up, but a number in our attendance for the pool used to be, it seemed like 30,000 was a mark that we were hitting for many, many years, and now we're down to half of that, to 15,000. Why?
Well, there are some, yes, there were some seasons in there where you're right, 30,000, we did hit that mark a few years. I can still hear the words from the pool consultant, and a lot of pools experience this, is that you have, you do this renovation and you have this spike, and the spike goes on for 4 or 5 years while everything's all fresh and new, and then invariably you start to see this sort of bell curve downward. We're not the only pool that experiences that, and so I think the last few years we're in this plateau. We're not, even on super hot seasons, we're not hitting 30,000. Our norm is probably more in the 22, 24 range, but even with that, I know there was one anomaly a year back where we were at 19,000, and that was kind of in our 30,000 heyday years, that there was this 1 year anomaly. So I mean, I think weather still trumps everything else when it comes to attendance, but the newness has obviously sort of worn off our facility, and so we're in this sort of plateau stage, and which isn't unusual for pools around Wisconsin.
Something I see in the community, and you can get a pool nowadays for $67 with a filtration system in it, and I see a lot of people throughout the community with backyard pools, and so I hope that we monitor this, and when we get to that 2018 or 19, when we're looking at doing something with the pool, we should be looking to the future and to track those needs. Do we need a pool this big? Are we doing the right thing for the kids? Don't get me wrong, I'm a big fan of the pool always, but I think what we should be projecting ahead and looking at those trends, and if more people are going to backyard pools, we need to probably making that adjustment too. If these numbers aren't going to go back up to 30,000 or 22,000, and they keep decreasing like this, I think we need to look at that adjustments for future.
Sure. One thing I just would say about that, it's these ideas sort of oppose one another, but one of the things that the pool consultant tells us is a community Menasha size probably could live with a little smaller pool from a square footage standpoint. However, we've also heard from people the one thing they really like about Menasha is the space and the size. They're not, if you look at Nina's pool, I hear it that you're kind of cramped, and so they like the expansive pool. So these two are kind of oppose one another. So something to think about.
I've heard nothing but compliments on Nina's pool and their landscaping over there all summer long, and I never got an opportunity to get over there and look at it, but I've heard that from many people throughout the summer too. Thank you.
Alderman Sevenick?
My question is for Peg. The 13,000 carryover, when do those resolutions come before this body? They're usually later than other
Yeah,
communities.
They're usually when we get everything all closed out. This year, I believe it was the first meeting in May. My goal
Yeah.
would be, probably the first meeting in April would be more
Yeah,
appropriate.
because I know Nina does it much, much earlier. We learned that through the Nina Menasha Fire Rescue. When there were any kind of carryovers, Nina's were already done and we were still waiting on ours.
The goal until the last couple years was always to have them done before the elections, because we wanted the council that had managed that budget to approve those carryovers. So that was always the goal until Peggy got here, and then we got a little behind those last couple years.
The last couple years have actually been, 2 years ago it was June.
Yeah.
And then it was May before that, so.
Yeah, but
I mean, we can work.
before then, though, it was always
Sure.
April.
And we can work to get them done sooner. The only difference is a lot of the things we do towards the end of the year-end closeout has to do with a lot of the TIFs and the special funds. So we like to get all the way through all those closeouts, so we only have to come once. But whatever date you set, we could come with whatever we have and just bring extras as
Okay.
they're needed.
Alderman Nichols?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Getting back to the pool, I just wanted to say that in my time at the pool over the summer, I heard nothing but compliments regarding the pool staff, the quality of our swimming lessons here in the city of Menasha, and I just wanted to pass those accolades on to you. People from all over the Fox Valley come to the Menasha pool for not only to hang out at the pool on those hot days because of its size, but also for the quality of our swimming lessons. So that's to be commended. Thank you.
Anyone else on pools? HECROD, I think you already went through. If anyone has further questions. The next is Forest. Oh, Kevin?
Mr. Mayor, you know, we dropped this fund down considerably when we got in the problems that we had with the steam plant, and I was wondering if we had any discussion at this point about going back a little bit and getting a little bit more money back towards HECROT. That is, again, like Cosel, it's a really important facility for the city of Menasha, and I'm not necessarily saying to adjust it, but I think every year I kind of bring this up that we need to look at supporting HECROT a little bit more. I think we kind of cut this number. We tried cutting it right out, but I think we both cut it in half, didn't we?
Yeah.
From what we used to do.
More than half. It used to be 8,800 for a number of years, now we're down to 2,000.
And I think we need to look at, as we go forward, to start incrementally possibly supporting this a little bit more. And I'm not making a motion or anything at this point. I just think that it's an important facility. They do a lot of education for our youth, and they provide just a really great facility, and it is a destination for a lot of people, and I think we need to make sure we're supporting it accordingly. Thank you.
Alderman Sevenick?
If we're gonna do that incrementally, I think we should do that this year. If you remember, it was just maybe 2 years ago, it got zeroed out, and I'm the one that made the motion to get it back going. So, yeah, I would support your endeavors there.
Finished with that one then? Okay, Forestry?
Well, we had another good year, I think, in forestry. Tree City USA Award, 31 years in a row. We also were awarded a growth award last year as well. Thanks in large part to the mayor. We've partnered up with UW Fox Valley, Menasha Utilities. We had sort of a trifecta, if you will, of tree line and tree campus entities in 2014, which is one of very few, I think, isn't it? It's like three entities in the state that are doing that. So we did have a hire of a new arborist. This year you probably will notice some overages in the sub account, especially in 30. I think department supplies. We invested in some climbing equipment for our arborists. That's why you see that number being over for this year. But on the flip side, if you look at our tree trimming funds, and I just want to highlight this, in 2014, in the forest, I'm going to show you the forestry and the forestry stormwater, we had $11,500 budgeted in 2014 in those two accounts. In 2015, we only have $5,000 budgeted, and that's attributable to, doing our own trimming. Those are direct cost savings because we now have an arborist who's up in a bucket truck doing a lot of this trimming. So there's less trimming budget request in forestry and forestry stormwater. So I thought I'd highlight that because I think that's a pretty solid, tangible benefit for hiring an arborist.
Those would have been outsourced services
That
before.
would have been outsourced, yes. Yeah, exactly. And then also, if I can highlight the forestry and the forestry stormwater, we have $1,500 for trees in the forestry budget in the regular 3018 account. And if you look at the stormwater, we have $6,500 there. So we have really a grand total of $8,000 for street trees. So that, we plan on planting about 125 trees. We figured that's about our limit or our max that our crew can handle. So that, averages out to about $64 a tree. So that gives you kind of a summary of the costs and the trees, both on our parks and our terrace trees, what we plan on planting.
Alderman Langdon.
Thank you, Mayor. Brian, does that arborist or Vincent, does he take down trees too?
Yeah, if you recall, we had a dead oak tree at Smith Park on the corner of Park and Nicolay, and he did take that down with just one other crew member.
Okay.
He's also, Brian talked about him being in the bucket truck. He is able to climb, and that's what a lot of those expenses were for climbing gear. He's able to, this spring, he trimmed all the trees in front of the pool by climbing and trimming those trees versus driving the bucket truck up on the lawn.
Okay, thanks.
The other thing I want to comment on is our partnership with utilities for some of the trees that are bad as well.
Last year, the Menasha Utilities removed several ash trees that were in the utility lines with the anticipation that emerald ash borer will be coming here. If it's not here already, we don't know that, but the anticipation is that any ash trees that are in the utility lines, they've been gracious enough to remove the top part of them because our arborist is not certified to work around high power wires, and they are. So they kind of top the trees so that our staff then can come in and remove that. So we'll continue that process with the next district that they'll be trimming this year.
Alderman Engelbert.
I just want to follow up on that emerald ash borer. I know we had a plan a few years ago. We had an assessment of our trees, and we identified some that were, in poor shape. And where are we at with those? Have we been taking those out systematically over the last?
Yeah, we have approximately 700 ash trees, of which we've removed all the high risk or critical trees. Those are all gone, and we're maybe a third of the way through the poor condition trees, and we're starting mostly with the ones that are in utility lines, getting those taken out, and then working our way down with the anticipated, it could take 2 or 3 more years to get those down. I would say if we are find emerald ash borer in the community, there is sort of a ticking clock of when those trees really start to die off. It's usually about a 3 to 4 year after you find the infestation, and then it's just an acceleration of dead trees. So our goal is to try to get ahead of that curve a little bit and get rid of got rid of the critical ones. Now we want to get rid of the poor ones and the ones in high utilities, and then anticipating maybe treating some to make that longevity or that transition period stretch out a little bit further.
Good, thank you. The last I heard, the last time, it did make its way into southern Winnebago County, just around the border with Winnebago and Fond du Lac. Is that the last
Yeah,
update?
it's south of Oshkosh.
Yeah. Okay, thanks, Vince.
Alderman Taylor?
Could you explain the terrace tree planting policy?
Well, there are, every year we have 2 districts that we plant trees in. I would typically look for requests from residents in those districts. I also we do our Arbor Day planting in that district or one of those 2 districts. And then we try to find some open spaces. If after that, then I just kind of go through and plant replacement trees, or in places where there aren't a lot of trees, like District 8 has a lot of planting sites, so we've been trying to hit some of those high areas that could use some more trees.
How many, in the 2 districts, how many trees are you budgeted for, or how many trees do you plant?
Well, in the last couple of years, it's been anywhere from 30 to 50 trees. Typically, that Arbor Day, we plant 30 trees. So, and then it's usually anywhere from 10 to 20 extra trees.
Thank you.
Alderman Sevenick?
Thank you, Mayor. Brian, I missed what you said. The both of you were saying there were 3 entities or communities that only do this now. I didn't know what I missed what you.
Yeah, to have a community that has a university, a utility, and a municipal government all win a tree city award.
Oh, gotcha.
Is pretty rare. There's
Right.
only 3 other examples of that in the state.
Okay. Also, too, as far as partnerships, the mayor did touch on a little bit about Menasha Utilities, but I know that Wisconsin Tissue Mills has always been a contributor and helper with that, and then in the past we had CNN, or the
Canadian
railroad.
National, sure.
So are we continuing to work with those partnerships?
We did not this year ask CN for a grant or a donation. Since we got one last year, we didn't feel too comfortable going after the pot twice for the amount that they contributed. SCA has contributed in the past. We also have for the last 2 years gotten funding from ATC. The first year I think we got $250, and last year we got $1,250. We did put in for a request for $5,000 from them. I haven't heard back from them. We asked for $5,000 year before and got $1,250, so we haven't heard back from them on that.
Alderman Nichols?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You mentioned how we're dealing with the emerald ash borer. What is the plan for replacing those trees?
Typically, when we take down a tree, other than in the park, we flag the tree and we send a letter to the property owner asking if they want a replacement tree. If they do, then we put in a different variety of whatever varieties that we have. And if they don't, we don't force it down anyone's throat, obviously. But so we've been looking at we buy trees in the spring and the fall. We have wider variety in the spring, and so we've just been trying to plant a different diversity throughout the city.
So those are for the street trees?
Correct.
That are ash trees, and then what happens in the parks?
In the parks, typically what will happen is I try to give whatever residents that wants a tree, and if we have 5, 6 left, then I put those in the parks.
Okay, thank you.
Alderman Taylor?
Thank you, Mayor. What is your policy? Do we actively apply for grants from the DNR or any other state or federal entity?
We did not do that this past year. We just short of staff, and they were kind of changing their focus from emerald ash borer to a different focus. And we will be trying to apply for another grant for next year. They kind of changed their focus into planting trees on private land in cooperation with municipalities. Right now, our ordinance does not allow the city to plant trees on private land, so we would have to actually have that part of the grant of changing our ordinance to allow for that. But that's something that we'll definitely be looking at for next year.
I'm certainly an advocate of grants, and if they're out there, we should be applying for them. We have other departments that almost live on grants. The health department just, they're just about all their fund, a lot of their funding is grants. So if there's grants out there for trees, we certainly need to apply for them. And if we have to pay a grant writer, and if the cost is offset, I think we need to do that. But if they're putting it out there, we need to look at it. Thank you.
I guess I could add to that a little bit too. I'm on the Urban Forestry Council, which helps develop some of those criteria for the urban forestry grants, and Vince and I sat down and talked about it a little bit. And right now our programs don't necessarily fit well with the priorities in the urban forestry grant programs. So that's why we applied with CN that year before, because we thought we had a better chance on that one. That's why we did apply for a couple years for the Emerald Ash Borer grants and the, what would that be called when we?
DAPCAT?
No, when we took a inventory grant. I mean, those fit with the criteria that the state was looking for. So we try to always match what we're asking for with the criteria that they're looking for.
Well, if you're a big shot on that big shot committee, you should change the laws for us.
I'm one of, I
Get
think,
going.
30 of us actually, and I'll be there on Friday. So
right.
I'll tell them they need to change it so Menasha gets more grants.
That's right. Thank you.
Anything else for forestry? What's after forestry? It's not the police department, so. Oh, Marina is next. Okay.
Got page 144. Is that Marina?
Sure.
Anyway, yeah, the Marina had a average or maybe a little bit below average year. On the good news side, we did put that security camera system in, and it was well received, and I believe our police department has seen a lessening of calls from the Marina. So I think that's a positive sign that it was a good move to make. And then for next year, really the only improvement that we're looking at is a different Wi-Fi system there. We tried sort of a hotspot kind of setup there, but the coverage wasn't all that good, and so been working with IT about coming up with a system. I believe it's about $2,000 is what we have budgeted, and I was surprised on how much feedback that we got from the renters down there once the system started to fail, that they do use it probably more than we perhaps thought they did, but so that's why we're looking at that. And Marina Fund is in relatively good shape. We're, I think, sitting in the $35,000 to probably $40,000 range, sitting in that fund right now. We do want to build that up because we are looking at some things, and this is an example of some projects that we're going to eventually get into the CIP plan. We do have some improvements to the fuel tanks that are going to be mandated in like 2020. There's some pedestals down there that we want to work on. So there's some things on the near horizon there that we want to build this Marina Fund up to take care of some of these projects. So that's just a little FYI, I guess, on the Marina.
Alderman Taylor has a question before you move on.
Yeah. What capacity was the Marina at this year?
As far as I know, it was full.
Okay. And when we put on a Wi-Fi service like this, and I understand that security reasons for the cameras with the police department are in play here, but when you're checking your fee structure, I think it's a good opportunity when you add a service like this to the boaters that it does reflect in the fees. And I'm also an advocate of user fees. So if somebody's going to be benefiting from this and using it, I think it should be reflected in their cost. Thank you.
Well, one thing I'd add to that, we did have a $35 fee that all the renters paid last year, so they basically paid for the camera system. And then on Monday night, there is going to be a small fee increase proposed for 2015. So that's coming as well, so.
Any other questions about the marina? We already did the park development fund. We have the recreation special fund, the park special fund, and the forestry special fund on page 225. Oops, I missed 164, sorry. 164 is the capital projects fund. And it's right in the middle of the page there.
Yeah, those are the, I think I mentioned earlier, the trestle trail renovation that we're working on with the town, and also the shoreline repair work at Jefferson Park.
Mark?
Yeah. Well, so
Go ahead, Mark.
Stan made it first.
I just wanted to ask, just a few weeks ago, we passed a resolution working with the city of Neenah for, can you talk a little bit about that and where that funding might be coming from?
Well, I believe we have that in the CIP plan in 2018. The Twin Trestle project, I guess, is what we're referring to it as. That's anticipating some type of grant will be applied for, and we need to, get on the same page with Neenah on that. So it is, perhaps you want to talk about that under the CIP budget, but it is identified in there.
Identified.
Yeah.
Alderman Langdon?
Thank you, Mayor. Brian, I can't remember if it was last year or the year before, but I haven't been on a trail either in a long time, so maybe it already is done. But when we were having, some issues with fishermen and hooking people, riders and walkers, and we talked about maybe putting some, what would you say, fishing spots below the bridge. Remember that? Is that going to be part of this rehab for the trail, Trestle Trail?
No, it's not. This rehab will be some of the cabling and the posts. I know there's some post replacements, some turnbuckle replacement, that kind of thing. No, and to answer your question, I have not received, I know the complaints for a few months ago were kind of hot and heavy for a while, but now they're, I don't know, things have sort of quieted down. So that's what I know on that.
Okay. Yeah, I just came to my mind. I remember when we talked about that, and I was just wondering if that was in there. So, okay, thanks.
So that was the capital improvements. No, what was the capital fund? Oh, Alderman Taylor?
Shoreline restoration or repair, where are you doing that on? What, $15,000 is it?
So what that is, if you start on the far west end of Jefferson Park, we had a contractor who came in and got a start on the repair. So what we're doing, we want to come up with a nice uniform 24-inch from the seawall inward, a nice neat 24-inch strip of packed gravel. And there are some seams on that part of the shore wall that need to be repaired. So before we just fill it all in, we're putting some fabric in there, and we're kind of fixing these washouts. And so we want to continue that look all the way down to the boat landing, hopefully Peanut Island as well. We want to have this nice clean look there.
Okay, and then on the trestle, what was the renovation on that?
That's the post, the railing posts primarily. I know there's some turnbuckle repairs. I'm trying to think what else was on the quote that the town has been working on that more than I have, but it's about expected to be about a $24,000 repair. That's why we're split kind of 12 and 12 on it. And the idea is to get these repairs and all done, and then have a little, celebration after it, 10-year anniversary.
Has anybody ever talked about maybe putting cameras on the trestle, since we have the technology now?
I know there is on the Fritzie side, on their shelter, there is a camera there, so they have sort of that west end covered, but not obviously in the center of the trail. But the thing that's been talked about most there has been going to a more energy efficient light, LED lights and that kind of thing. So we may have a conversion there at some point.
As technology presents itself, I certainly, keep an eye on that issue for all our park system, I notice other communities have it near their shelters and things, so it helps stop vandalism. Thanks.
The last section is page 225. These are revenue funds, correct? No. These are operational funds as well.
Yeah, these are expected donations and expenses that come into these various accounts. It could be donated trees or benches. For the rec department, we get money in for t-shirts. We go out and ask businesses for money to help fund our t-ball t-shirts, so that's reflected on this page.
So I think that's the end of your budgets then, Brian? Does anyone else have any general questions that we might have missed on the way through? Alderman Taylor?
With our reciprocity with Appleton, that doesn't include their golf course, does it? The citizens of Menasha get the Appleton fee for that course.
I'd have to go back. I believe that was taken. That's out. It's out, yeah. Yeah, I know it was a while ago that it wasn't, but...
I know they feel that we don't have a...
I don't believe they have non-resident fees there anymore, so it's kind of a moot point.
They have what now?
They don't have non-resident fees at the golf course.
Oh, they don't?
It's somewhat of a moot point,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. I was getting at, if that was the case, they have in the lower river, they have a boat landing, and we do too, but in the upper rivers, they don't have a boat landing. I think that was an option if we didn't have a golf course, they didn't have a golf, or they have a golf course. We could use that strategy also for the upper river and lake boat landing for that reciprocity agreement, that they can't provide that service to us, but we can. Thanks.
Anything else for parks? If not, we have a few other department heads that have joined in now, and we're going to start out with Director Steno, kind of just generally going over how the CIP works, and then we'll kind of open it up, and we have several of the department heads here as well if you have questions.
So we did give you some new sheets. I think I placed everyone's in except for Alderman Taylor's, and I can certainly do that. But we had just 4 pages that were changed tonight as far as the plan went, and that was just some titling and some reference numbers so that you could find the correct projects. But basically, the overall reason we want to do a CIP is a couple things. Certainly, it's a planning document to tell us what kind of infrastructure needs we have going forward into the future. The first year is usually the year that gets approved the night of the budget, so we're in the process of preparing a resolution that basically what's in the 2015 plan for the most part is also partnered in the budget, and then some of it's for borrowing. We can look at that on the funding page. So the financial document part of it, that's year 1, but years 2 through 5 are really just so that we can all together, the council, the community, and the staff can all work together at what the priorities for the community would be and the timing for those. So the way the plan works that you have in front of you is, and I did give a different page number sheet out tonight. So basically from page 266 to 326, that's the plan itself. That's the actual plan. It goes through each year and separates each project from streets to stormwater to sanitary sewer, then into water, which we have some water utility projects in. Then it goes to sidewalks, traffic improvements, park improvements, property, and equipment. Those are usually the main pieces. And then filtered throughout are the TIF projects that go in each certain category, as well as the TIF summary at the end. The reason we need all those things separated out in the format that I put them in is because when you borrow money publicly, you have to borrow based on those purposes that I have laid out. So it's easiest, I know it doesn't matter as much right now because we're just going through the state trust fund, but when and if we get back into the public borrowing market, this will be the structure of the borrowing under federal and state law. So that's why they're laid out the way they are. But basically, like I said, what would be considered for approval on next Monday would be the 2015 plan, and then 2016 to 19 would really just remain a planning document that would then get updated next year, and then again, year 1 would be the financial document, years 2 through 5 would be the planning document. As you notice, and I think we mentioned briefly at the workshop on Monday night, when you get out to some of the later years, there's some pretty high numbers in there. Don't think that that's what we're proposing. Those are some very high numbers, and we certainly probably couldn't fund all those, but what they are is placeholders. So something that's in year 5 or year 4 right now doesn't necessarily move to year 3 or year 4 next year. It just depends on, again, the long-term planning that goes on. So it's really just to get them in the plan.
So for the most part, what you see in the 2015 capital improvement plan was already in the budget that we reviewed. This is just another format. There are some of the TBA projects, there's a D or A, or I forget which letter you used. There are some.
The letters correspond to the years. So the A projects are 2015 projects, and it would be what year do they begin in? Because we have some A projects that go all the way throughout the 5 years. But you will see that on the project. So 2015 are the A projects, 2016 B, C through B.
I guess I was talking about the ones that we had to be determined funding on them.
Yeah.
Those you may not have seen within the budget. We have like the R.R. Donnelly and vicinity redevelopment, some of the TIF projects that we didn't have a specific dollar amount, and those then would have to come back to the council for a budget adjustment if we did do those correct.
Right, so you're referring to page 280.
I got a question.
Just maybe jump.
Sure. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. As long as you mention that,
Tell us where you are though first.
well, on page 278,
Okay.
number 21, R. Donnelly. I was just wondering, and Greg's out there, this is probably a question for Greg, but see, Mayor, you said R. Donnelly.
I just grabbed that one.
Yeah, I know it.
That was the only one I saw that said TBD
so
on
it
it.
came to my head. So,
Sorry, Greg.
why that sign that's still out in the front there, are we still trying to sell that place or lease it, or
Greg, do you want to?
or what are we trying to do? I know we gave it to the RDA, but the sign is still out there. I'm just wondering.
Okay, so, well, the R.R. Donnelly property on Anup Street is still owned by R.R. Donnelly.
Yep.
The county council did authorize the RDA to seek to acquire the property. The RDA has authorized staff to pursue the acquisition. We've had some interaction with Donnelly relative to the purchase. We've also had conversations with an outside legal counsel seeking perhaps his assistance in drafting the offer. It's our expectation that we'll have an offer to R.R. Donnelly sometime, hopefully, by the end of the year. However, that offer will contain multiple contingencies. We would need to have several things in place. A primary one being a source of revenue to pay for the acquisition, if any cost for that, site investigation, if any cost for that, demolition, if any cost for that, and site restoration. So the first and probably most significant step is to get a contingent offer out to R.R. Donnelly, and if that contingent offer was accepted, then we would be going back to the redevelopment authority and most likely the common council to proceed with that acquisition.
Okay, I was just kind of curious, just because my wife pays the bills, that's one of her jobs, and, you know, I'm sure the word's out at Donnelly that, you know, the city must be, you know, or gonna buy it or whatever, and she asked me the other night, because she got the bill, why are we still paying the bills? You know,
Because they still own it.
because they still own it.
Yes.
Right, so I was just, you know, then that, I see that for sale sign, so I was just wondering, you know, so, okay, thanks.
I mean, this is one of the benefits of the CIP, that it actually starts laying this out for all of the elected officials and the public. They can see what roads we're looking at, what park improvements we're looking at, what equipment we're looking at, and you can help us set priorities then in those out years as well. So that's the benefit of having this out there. So, I know Alderman Benner wanted to talk a little bit about emergency warning systems, and I had put a memo out on your desk this evening. I don't know if you want to bring that up or not now.
Sure, I can. I wasn't sure in what format that you wanted to approach us at.
I guess this would be a potential addition to the CIP, probably in the 2015 timeframe, but that's up to you how you'd like to do that.
Well, at first I wanted to just get this on the table and have it open for discussion. And we've been working on this since May. Actually, it was when it was first brought to my attention that we don't have any emergency alert sirens in Calumet County. All of Winnebago County has it, so everybody in the city of Menasha has it except District 8. And I really didn't realize it because I could hear the sirens when they test them from my house, but I'm pretty close to Winnebago County. And so this was brought to my attention from some of the folks in my district, and so we did some research. We had a meeting with Calumet County, and Calumet County does not provide emergency sirens for anybody in Calumet County. That doesn't mean that people in Calumet County don't have them. Brillion has it, Sherwood has it, I think Chilton has it, but all those communities are providing it themselves. And then, but the county is then activating them for them. And I actually, I've had some discussion with our Calumet County supervisor on it, which most of you know is Bob Stinky, and I called him and asked him to be here tonight, and he is here tonight, but the county's position is they don't provide it, and it just, to me, seems like there's a lot of logic to provide these sirens. They're about $35,000 a purchase, another $5,000 to put them in, and then all the citizens of Menasha then have the same enunciation as to a potential tornado or emergency that could happen. And so I just thought there was a lot of logic to it to have it. There's also a lot of discussion. We had the fire department, as you can tell by the memo, the fire department did a lot of research on this. They sent folks out to actually, I think they took some decibel readings in certain areas to see if they were hearing any of it on Saturday. That was a washover from Winnebago County, and it was only right up on the west side of District 8 that you could hear anything. So it was brought to my attention. It was asked that we provide them, and so the city did some research on it, and if we're going to provide these sirens, then the city will have to pay for it and maintain it, as where if we're on the west side, the folks on the west side of Oneida Street, Winnebago County takes care of everything. And we all know that Appleton has them. We all know what went on. Sorry, Appleton, I kind of mentioned their name, but we all kind of know what went on. And Outagamie County does provide them for Appleton, which of course is our neighbor to the north. And we're just Calumet County is kind of sitting on this little island where we don't have them, and they are residents in Menasha, and the folks feel very strongly that they should have the same level of protection that our neighbors have, so neighbors in the city of Menasha and around us. So I'll just kind of leave it open for discussion at this point.
Alderman Sevenick.
Thank you, Mayor. I served on the Winnebago County Board, and I was always amazed how important this topic was to Winnebago County officials in the emergency management part of Winnebago County. And I was shocked as Alderman Benner that Calumet County doesn't provide this type of service. As Alderman Benner stated, Outagamie County does, Winnebago does, but Calumet doesn't, and then other communities pick up the costs in Calumet County. I am not in favor of the city of Menasha funding this at all, unless it's specially assessed for District 8 or those areas that are in Calumet County, because that would be like double dipping into the residents that are already paying for it through their county taxes in this area. So, I mean, if that's what you were looking at or whatever, that's fine then, but I'm really shocked that the county in Calumet has not taken this more seriously. Let's not forget the outrage that happened in Outagamie County when the director there, I don't know the full story, but I mean, person lost their job over this issue, and it can be a serious thing. I hope nothing happens next spring in Outagamie County, because I would honestly believe that it's the county's responsibility for that issue.
So the proposal, I guess I am on. Didn't sound like I was on. The proposal that you have in front of you, Greg and I spoke a little bit. We believe we could fund this out of TIF 9 or TIF 12, which basically means the people of Calumet County would be paying for it because those taxes are being held from those two areas in Calumet County. Otherwise, I would have to agree with you, Stan, that having the people in Winnebago County pay for it seems like it's double dipping. So that's what this proposal would do. You can disagree with that, but I just wanted to make people aware of that.
If I could yield. I mean, okay, I disagree with that. I mean, yeah, that's an easy funding source to go to, but then maybe the people of Winnebago County should get reimbursed for the TIFs that are in Winnebago County to offset their taxes.
True.
You know, so that's why the county does this. This is why county government does this, so you don't have this overlap of inefficient funding for this type of service.
Exactly, and it's one of the disadvantages of being in two counties.
Okay, so thank you, Kevin.
Yeah. James, would you mind yielding back to Kevin?
Sure.
Since-
Oh, go.
Oh, apparently he would like to let everyone have, go ahead, James, then. We're playing musical.
I know it says that Calumet County doesn't do this, but, you know, Calumet County is growing with residents pretty rapidly, and also with the villages that are from towns to villages. And has this been brought to the floor of the body in Calumet County?
I don't think it was brought to the county board, was it, Bob? No, okay. We did speak to Matthew, what was his last name? Remember? The emergency director for Calumet County, and he encouraged us to have people buy weather radios, use the alert systems, and or have us put in a system here. That Calumet County was not in the business of doing that, was
So it's supposed
basically
to
the
put
message.
weather radio in every kid's backpack out there in that side of the
Or in their
United
cell
States.
phone. So, but that was their level of service. I mean, we have two different models here. Winnebago County is a high service, high tax county, and Calumet County is a low tax, low service county.
Did anybody look for the federal side of it, if there was any contribution from the federal government?
We didn't go that far yet.
Okay. All right, thank you.
I got a question.
Oh, Mark?
This is for Alderman Benner. Kevin, I was just wondering, I know I don't know how early, it's early for us to get this. I know you've been working. Have you talked to the people out in your area in Calumet County, and would they be okay with the TIFs, going through the TIFs, and then they would pay for it?
No, I really haven't, because when it came to the budgeting side of it, of how we were gonna pay for it, that was just a discussion that's come up recently, because a big part of it was the thought of exactly what Alderman Sevenich brought up, that it'd be unfair holistically to have it put on the levy and have everybody in the city pay for what Calumet County has when Winnebago County has it provided by the county. That was kind of a general sentiment, but it was looking at how we do it so that it stays isolated within Calumet County, and that's why the TIF portions seem to be desirable to do it that way, because then the tax impact was felt only in Calumet County and not in Winnebago County. And there was some discussion too as to the appropriateness of doing it with a TIF or not doing it with a TIF, and you know, so there was dialogue with that, but to bring it to that finite level to say, yes, this is exactly how we would do it if we do it, and then go door to door to see if people are really in favor of it, that did not happen.
So what would happen if we would if someone would make a motion to add this to the CAP tonight? It would go under, I don't know what page it's on. Maybe Peggy can help me. What's the last page here? 290. It would go under the, is it on this one? Where is that page? The to be determined page? 280. That's why I'm not seeing it. So it would go under the projects, to be determined projects, TIF, which would require that this would come back to the council once we did more investigation, we looked for federal funding, etc., or went back to the county again and tried there again, but it would need to come back for another approval at the council level before anything could happen. So this kind of encourages us as staff to go out and do more research and investigate this a little further. And then you'd get another kick at the cat here as well, and we'd be able to notify the residents a little bit further and go from there. So Alderman Severnick?
I'm not sure. I don't think there's any argument that there's not a need. There's definitely a need. How it should be paid is really the issue here. And to me, there's only one true fair way. If Calumet County is not taxing their people for this service, then it has to be a special assessment.
Is that a potential, Peggy? Can we do an area-wide special assessment?
That would be the only fair way where someone else isn't subsidizing this.
I don't even know if that's possible.
There is a miscellaneous special assessment, and if it's for public infrastructure.
But to specially assess $40,000 over the entire county.
And then the other question
No,
I have is,
we're
will it
talking
only
about
benefit
within the boundaries of the city of Menasha. We're not talking about for the whole county.
No.
We're not going to take care of
No.
the village of Harrison or.
We're saying the same thing.
Okay.
I just meant the part of Menasha that's in
Right.
Calumet County.
Right, okay, thank you.
I mean, it's gonna amount to $3 or something like that, I would guess.
Yeah, I don't know how many people are in that.
Yeah, Greg?
If I could just comment, TIF number 9 is generating somewhere in the neighborhood of $500,000 a year in increments, so adding, 30 or 40,000 would extend the life of the TIF less than one.
But then let's start taking from the TIFs that are in the Winnebago County and start funding things for people in Winnebago County to offset their taxes. I mean, I'm talking about tax fairness here. And to go to a TIF because there's a TIF over there so that, residents don't want to pay $3 more is, to me, inappropriate.
Well, it's like any other amenity in the TIF. If, for instance, we did the, let's say, stamped concrete sidewalk, we could do that out of TIF funds, and that would be a perfectly appropriate expenditure. Those TIFs would be in TIF 9.
We try to stay it with, but the whole district is not in a TIF. That's my point.
And I understand your argument, Stan. I mean, I don't think anyone necessarily disagrees with that argument. I think the first thing we should kind of talk about is do we think that the emergency sirens are valid?
Definitely.
Okay. So, I mean, if that's the case, then maybe what we should do is have someone make the motion to put it in the CIP. And then we'll look at all the different ways to fund it and bring it back. And then the council can either say yes or no at that point.
I mean, I'll even take that step. I'll make that motion.
Okay. Do you want to, so the motion
To add it
is,
to,
the motion's on the back of the second page. The first place we're going to go back to is Bob, ask him to have the county fund it.
is it at the very end or
It's,
what?
it's right underneath the bolded section here.
Okay, to add Calumet County emergency sirens to the 2015 capital improvement projects under the potential projects not included in the 2015 budget borrowing plan.
Is there a second?
Alderman Engelbert seconded.
There's a motion and a second. Is there further discussion? Alderman Benner?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to follow up on something. Greg touched on one thing I was going to talk about, that whatever you do with TIF, wherever it is, it affects everybody, and whether it's in this district or another district, to me, it doesn't hardly matter. But the other thing I just really wanted to make sure everybody is sensitive to is that these folks are our neighbors. You know, they live in our city, and to start splitting hairs over certain amount of dollars or where it comes from when we're talking about protection of our citizens and our residents, I clearly understand the dollar side of it, I really do, but then I'm kind of sensitive as to the, you know, they're our residents and our neighbors, and we want to make sure that we're doing the right thing for them. So I just wanted to make that comment. Thanks.
Alderman Taylor?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's nothing to do with that. It worked good before. I haven't done anything different.
Push it up higher and away from
And then you get. Okay. I certainly would like to see us.
Radioactive.
I would like to see us work with first the county, and then if we strike out there the federal or the state, and then also the people in the town of Harrison along Lake Winnebago would benefit from this too. And I would like to see us approach them and ask them if they would be interested in. Yes. Yes.
We could certainly ask them. I can pretty much guess what the comment would be, but I guess where we would probably place this would be near the center of the district, somewhere along Kernan, which probably wouldn't benefit the town of Harrison very much.
Most population is.
Yeah, well, we wanted the center
Well,
of that
just
area.
Make sure we exercise everything. Also, these sirens, they take lightning strikes, and you know, you may be replacing this one the following year. You know, so certainly, I think the county needs to, as the cities and townships and villages expand, I would hope that they would put their county people on notice that they would like this service. So I think that's something that should be done too. It's not only at the city level here, but at the county level too. Thank you.
I got a question. Thank you, Mayor. Now, don't laugh.
We all start
We're all gonna laugh. But I'm gonna ask it question anyway. Is this a grant at all, or no?
That's what Alderman Taylor was talking about, federal and state funding. There might
Okay.
be some other grants out there as well.
Okay.
Sure. I've got that on my list. Any other now you're up, Becky?
I will share what I was going to say. Just to sort of echo what Alderman Benner said, these folks are residents of the city of Menasha. And, you know, if we really intend to play that tit for tat game, I would consider those the residents of the Calumet County portion of Menasha to be doubly taxed for the public library service that we provide here in the city. They are charged that on their city taxes, as well as a portion of our funding for the library comes from Calumet County, from their county taxes. They are citizens of the city of Menasha. They're asking for a service that is provided to all other residents of the city, and I think that we should seriously consider it.
Alderman Sevenick?
I guess if we're gonna get into a debate, let's do it. Because the citizens of Menasha and Winnebago County also pay Winnebago County for their taxes for the library also. So, I mean, talk about splitting hairs. That wasn't even a good example. Think of a new one.
I didn't really want to bring that up, but actually there's a separate tax rate for both counties, whether you're in a library, in a community that has a library or a community that doesn't, as well as with a health department. But I didn't really want to bring that up at the moment. It's not that germane. Any other comments? Well, since Stan brought it up on the Winnebago side. Well, could we?
I just have a comment.
Okay, nothing about libraries though, right?
No.
Okay.
No, nothing about that. I just, on behalf of the folks out in District 8 that have contacted me on this, I really do appreciate everybody's support on going forward with this and taking this seriously, and hopefully it comes to fruition in a good way. And I appreciate everybody's support. Thank you.
If there's no other discussion, could we have a roll call vote on that?
Fails. Motion carries on roll call 7-0.
Is that one District 6 that always is red that's not working tonight? Okay, so we also have the capital improvements plan from 16 to 19. I don't know if you guys want us to talk at all about that, or if you just want to look through it and provide comments. I mean, this is our planning document, as Peggy said, and we will be using that to create next year's 2016 CIP as well as 2020 CIP.
Where's the monorail?
No monorail. There is a public works facility in there. There's a pool in there. Those are the two big, and the Twin Trestle project are probably the big projects. The rest are streets for the most part and some equipment. Alderman Nichols?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Director Steno, could you explain the reference column that's at the right-hand side of every page?
Sure. As I mentioned earlier, the actual plan is only on pages 266 to 326. So all the pages after that, from 327 to 439, those would be the project details. So 2015 projects would be A references, ones initiated in 2015, B, C, D. So if you just took one, the very first project in 2015 happens to be a street, and that's Broad Street. If you would go to reference A1 back on page 327, I believe.
They're basically the descriptions of the projects.
Okay, so the ones that have different letters beside them, B7, B10, are all, that refers to the project number. Okay.
Correct.
I see it now.
And then it would just be any details if you wanted to see more details on whatever that project was.
Thank you. My second question would be for Director Tunge. When we were discussing when we were discussing the park budget, I asked a question about the pour-in-place material for the playgrounds at the parks throughout the city. And when I page through the CIP and look at park improvements, I'm looking at page 323 right now as an example, which just happens to be 2019. I haven't yet caught any references to that accomplishment. Would that fall into a capital improvements plan under park improvements, or is that something that would be planned for and budgeted separately?
we've typically put that in the budget sub-account, regular budget. That's where we have bought our material in the past. So that, you're right, you don't see that in here, but it would be budgeted in our regular budget.
Okay. The reason I'm asking is because as long as I've been following city government, we've been talking about the pour and play surface, and I feel really strongly that it's a good surface. It's a very nice surface for kids to play on, safer than wood chips and grass, ground, whatever else is out there at the parks. And so I was wondering if it might be something to consider putting in the CIP, if not, at least to keep it in the forefront of our minds as we move through projects.
Also, if you would, as you see through there, if there was a new playground equipment,
Yes.
that board in place would have to go in at that time, so that would be part of that funding.
Okay,
Should be
that's good
part
to
of that
know.
funding.
That's good to know, thank you. Because I do see playground equipment on the schedule quite regularly. Thank you.
Question for Director Radke. The 3rd Street in the 2016 Capital Improvement Program, the third, pardon me? Page. Oh, I'm sorry. Page 282. Item 6, 3rd Street Bridge Replacement. When we replace that, will the new bridge be where the existing bridge is, or we're going north or south? And first explain that portion of it.
Okay, regarding the location of the new bridge,
Yes.
that hasn't been determined yet. They're looking at several different possibilities, different options as to, most likely we're going to keep a portion of the bridge there that can be used for traffic during the interim period. And so it's not going to be located too far away from what the existing bridge is.
Just
Is
to
what
the
it's
north.
looking like, but again, we haven't, the final agreement, three-party agreement has not even been adopted yet by DOT, so
Okay.
until they do that, they can't start work on that, but that's one of the concepts, is to keep it pretty much in line with the existing.
There is a bridge foundation to the north of the existing bridge, and I was just wondering if we're going to get into that area or not with that. And also, that bridge was where the old streetcar used way back before any of our days. So used to go straight through the land there and right out to Waverly Beach. So,
Okay.
thank you.
Alderman Keegan.
Thank you. I just want to commend the mayor, Director Stino, and all the other directors for putting together this CIP. This is the easiest document to use. It gives us an idea of where we're going, kind of gives us, direction, a plan, and priorities. So, thank you. It's very good.
It was mainly Peggy's, I don't know how many nights, and Mark's how many nights putting of this together. They had the two biggest chunks of it. But it's a great document. It's something we've needed for many years. So, are there any other questions about this?
Just that if we see something, or, I mean, obviously this is just like a plan, a tool to use, and if there are things like priorities that come up, then we can always add to, and would we be trying to do that on a regular basis?
We would formally update it once a year, but certainly we would take comments at any time and include those in the next update.
If there's no other comments, we can accept a motion to adjourn. So motion is second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you.
Broadcasts of the City of Menasha Administration Committee, Board of Public Works, and Common Council meetings are produced by University Studios of the University of Wisconsin-Fox Valley. Menasha residents and interested parties can obtain information about these meetings and meeting agendas from the city website, www.cityofmenasha-wi.gov. Expression of opinions regarding City of Menasha issues or about these broadcasts can be made by contacting the mayor's office, 920-967-5117. Contacting their city alderman. Contact information appears on the website. Completing the electronic feedback form on the website. All public portions of the meetings are recorded in entirety and are not edited for playback.